I'm here with Hydron, and it's an interesting time in the off season. Not really. It's not too much happening, and that in itself is a thing that we can talk about. But we're interested in, like, last time we had Poco on. He said basically like European ranked is a shit show. How is NA ranked treating you?
Terrible. It's probably just as bad or worse. Okay, not worse, but it's not fun.
But
It's
what's not fun about it?
it's not an experience. There's a lot of trolls, a lot of new players who, I mean, it's not their fault, but it gets bad. It's just a lot of people don't like to try. So.
Are there still a lot of OWL players playing at the moment?
Yeah, but it's like spread out. It's pretty much one friend group, and if that friend group queues at the same time, then ranked is good. But if not, then ranked is usually pretty bad.
Is it just deflated because it's not the version you will be eventually playing on?
Yeah, that and the fact that there's most of the OWL players are not here. The only OWL players are the people who just got signed from like Contenders, like my old teammates, and then like the existing ones like Nero, Hawk, those guys.
Does it even make sense to stay active on Overwatch then? Couldn't you just like have a month of Tarkov or whatever everyone else is playing and just like chill out?
No, I don't think so because Overwatch is such a demanding game, and if you don't constantly play the game, you just get washed really fast. So playing Overwatch 1 at least, keep some mechanics going. I can improve on mechanics at least. So
Right. Yeah, I guess like especially for DPS, and the game will change of course, but probably not too much. Is there any fears like about transitioning into the Overwatch 2 type of like pre-patch 5v5 gameplay?
no, not for me. I'm kind of excited for it because I'm a grinder, so I think learning new heroes and playing new maps and all that stuff is really fun to me. So I think playing those, the new game is gonna be really fun and exciting. So I just want to get my hands on it because this game right now is bad.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you have like a theory? Because like it feels like it's really hard going forward in implementing whatever that pre-patch will be. Because like theoretically speaking, okay, are you going to make it available for everyone and then you can play ranked on it? Or would you only have it available for our players? Then they can play only like internal scrims and they have a rank S thing going on. Do you have a preference towards like how that's going? And do you think like a big part of it will be like whether or not you will be able to stream it as well?
Well, that's the hope. I think what's gonna happen, I think they're gonna release it to the pros. We're gonna have like a month or two to practice before the OWL season starts, and then there's no way there's ranked for that pre-beta batch. So it should be just pros internally scrimming and pugging for like all the practice you should get, and I hope they allow us to stream it because if you can't stream it, then Overwatch 1 completely just dies because the pros aren't playing it, the pros aren't streaming. Like it's dead. Like what if like Super, like he plays Overwatch 2 now? He has to grind that game because it's competitive. It's a new game. Everyone's pretty much start at the bottom, and then what he's gonna go stream Overwatch 1?
Yeah.
Like that kind of defeats the purpose of it. So I hope not. I hope best case scenario they release the pre-batch, like the pre-beta to OWL players for like a month or two, and then when the OWL season starts, they'll have like a beta testing like they had for Overwatch 1. Like people had like beta access. Um, and so I hope that's what happens so people can play because it's pointless to watch a game you can't play.
Right. Yeah. Now, I mean, theoretically speaking, if we can at least scrim against other pro players outside of scrims, it's sort of like we know those sort of structures from CS in like the rank S type of gameplay. Is that something that was needed for a while in Overwatch, you think?
Yeah, like a Faceit system. The other one, which I can't forget, but there was one for a little bit, and that got ruined. I forgot what it's called. I think it was a Faceit. And a few, people ruined it potentially. And so that happened, and they never did anything again with Overwatch. So yeah, and people don't like pugging. If it's like, I don't know. I've tried to start pugs personally, and they never last. It's like a day or two max.
What's the problem with them?
I don't know. People like to play the game for an incentive. So SR, for example. So kind of just pugging, and then especially in my friend group, we kind of start having too much fun with it, and we start trolling, and then it just defeats the purpose of practice. So
Right. So that probably needs to be like a cash prize and a letter in order to make it work.
yeah, it's some good incentive to keep playing because people liked ranked, I guess. I mean, it's the best incentive. So getting like rank 1 or something is cooler than whatever we have so far. Like we have golden guns.
Right. Very true. Yes. Now, of course, you're one of the American Tornado alumni. Of course, later on also Redbird, which was sort of like a split. And I mean, you guys won a ton of trophies, right? Theoretically speaking, I mean, you sort of started dominating at the worst possible time with Coven coming around, but otherwise you would have been at Gauntlet, I think you said twice. You won the Eastern version if you wanted to count the show match there. Do you think the initial American Tornado roster, was everyone just like really good, or were you just good at playing together?
No, everyone was really good. I think the thing is we were so good, like mechanically, individually, that practicing with like intent, like how teams VOD review, they scrim 2 blocks a day, they scrim every day, was pointless to us because our 1 scrim a day or every 2 days didn't matter because we won regardless. So we didn't necessarily take it seriously because there's no incentive. If whatever we're doing now works and we're having fun with it, like we were having a lot of fun in scrims and trolling and stuff like that because we were all good friends. So yeah, I think had we taken it seriously and we had like, let's say, Gauntlet in Korea to look forward to, we could have become really good, like insanely good, kind of like AT towards the end of its life.
Now, the equivalent is definitely there, right? Like a North American team that sort of like dominates North American Contenders, also has like a lot of international success, as much as that was possible for you guys. But did you guys also scrim all teams during that time?
We exclusively scrimmed all teams, at least on AT, because I don't know, not to sound braggy, but scrim Contenders teams did no justice for us. Like we had this thing on AT where we'd give it a map, we'd see how that map goes. If it was just a complete like steamroll, it's all for fun. We call ourselves for fun players at that point. So, so our teams were the only good practice we could get. So we only scrimmed them, and we scrimmed them the entire season.
Did you become for fun team against any owl team?
Yeah, but with owl teams, it wasn't like a one map rule. It was just kind of like halfway through the block. Don't want to say teams, but like we're a bunch of teenagers. We're just playing Overwatch to have fun. The aspiration is to go pro. But yeah, we had a lot of fun even against owl teams. But for the most part, it was semi-serious.
Right. That must have been so last year, not this year, but like 2020, when you started scrimming the owl teams. Like, what's your feeling like? What was your level at? Where would you have landed in the Overwatch League if that team had played there?
I'm gonna get a lot of crap for this. But
here we go.
At least top 5. Like unquestionable in my mind. Like I'm not gonna like disclose like scrims because scrims are still scrims, and
Sure.
people are gonna say scrim bucks and all that stuff. But just on a mechanical level, individually, some of our players like speed, EV, OG, against their counterparts, it wasn't like some out teams. It wasn't like close. Like I don't think people realize how good those players actually are. But they'll get to see how good they are. But yeah, against in Al we would have done really well, I'd say.
I mean, your particular role is pretty stacked in Owl, right? Like, how did you feel going up against like the better players? Like, because I mean, that is a pretty stacked role. Probably the most skilled players in the league are playing. DPS,
Yeah,
right?
no, for sure. For me, when I first was scrimming with AT, I was really bad. I'd say I was pretty bad. And just scrimming out teams, I got, I just started getting better and better because play against better players, you're gonna get better. But for me, this upcoming season, I was pretty confident. I think, generally speaking, because I'm a hit scan player, but I can play tracer because usually now there's usually a dedicated tracer / flanker player, and then there's like a hard hit scan. There's your Happy, your Kai's, and then you have like your Dantes and whatnot for tracer and stuff like that. And so I think for me, I coming to this offseason, I was like, I think teams are really gonna want somebody who can play everything coming Overwatch 2. And also my level on those heroes is I rate myself pretty well. So
Right. Now, just really quickly back to the AT similarities. Given that there are similarities, if we look back in history, right, like a lot of those players did quite well, of course, like Gator and Hawk specifically, like with AT, they probably were like a top 3 team last year, like making it to a 4 or 5 times and making it to the final. I mean, that's a big success, but on the other hand, some of those players like Saucy and Kodak sort of never went too far, even though they made it into Owl. Is there any fear that on any of those guys, like both from American Tornado and those from Redbird, will not transition as well? Or if that was to be the case, do you think it would almost certainly have something to do with Overwatch 2?
well, in my experience, because I know these guys, like we're closest friends since whatnot, and because I like know them so well, like AT was just a bunch of grinders. We play the game. We play like 6 hours a day minimum. So Overwatch 2 isn't. I mean, in my head, they just grind the game as much as they do now. There should be no problem, right? Hypothetically, but anything could happen. But in terms of like transitioning to Al, I don't see anybody like fluking and whatnot because in my experience scrimming with them for about a year, it yeah, especially like comparing them to like their counterparts I'd see in scrims, like I think they're gonna do just fine and pass expectations.
I guess the more like recent analogy or like similarity is the team that you crafted the name after, which is British Hurricane, and they had like huge success in Contenders. I mean, you went pretty close with them in the show match, however like serious that was. But then they didn't do that well in Owl. Dare I say, pretty terribly. So, what do you think? Why that is?
Because they were good at playing together rather like individually. Like they were like okay, but then like together they were way better because they had been a team like a year and a half, right? So when you scrim for that long and then you scrim a region who's your competition, literally the teams are changing like every month or two. People are swapping teams. So dominating, like EU is, I wouldn't say it's like hard, but like it's for them compared to what they had. Their paid players are on academy. They have something to work towards. Some of these players and contenders are like, I'm just here for fun, But those are like those people's jobs, I guess, right? So, and they took it seriously. Like they VOD reviewed every day, they all that stuff, and then now you took them apart. You took some pieces out. It's not the same. You dropped the coach. It's not the same, and now it's really mechanically demanding, and so teamwork can only get you so far, I think.
Right. Now, you then also transitioned to the next team. The team sort of split in half, I would say, like roughly speaking. And you landed at Redbird. Now, how does one land with a collegiate program? And also, I mean, looking at the history of our players that were hired out of collegiate, weren't that many, right? So was there ever any fear that might be not conducive in order to like get to Overwatch League?
No, because I knew joining Redbirds that we'd play in Contenders, and then with the roster on paper, I was like, yeah, okay, that's no problem because it's like the same thing as AT as winning Contenders every time. So I mean, even being a collegiate team makes no difference because you're another team in Contenders and you're competing, and if you're winning, then your name's out there. And I'd say my track record from AT to Redbirds like spoke for itself. So I didn't, I wasn't like concerned of like our teams being like, well, he's in collegiate now, maybe, any doubts. But Contenders is the same level competition I played in AT, so it's the same thing. And we won in Contenders on Redbirds. So
Why was that like an attractive prospect going into collegiate for you?
because I didn't want to waste the semester sitting at home and just doing nothing and playing ranked all day. I at least wanted to get like a semester out for education and then do well because why not? The scholarship is pretty good, so it's really hard to take it down. And I wanted to do like the college experience for like a semester and see what that was like. So yeah, I couldn't really say no, I think.
Right. But just like map that out for me because I'm not too familiar with the American collegiate system, but like, could you theoretically like gotten a second semester in before OWL and like still practice as much, or was that not possible?
No, because the spring semester starts from January to May.
Oh, right.
And if OWL starts in April, then there's no way, because then I'd be obliged to Redbirds until May, and I
Right.
can't be obliged to two teams at the same time, especially now with the new game, which is going to take a lot of time to practice with.
At the end of the first part of our interview with Hydron. Now, in the second part, we talked to him about why he went with the Mayhem and what kind of expectations he has for the team. We also talk about playing in a hybrid roster with language barriers, what kind of other offers he has received, going from teams that practically won everything to a team that is expected to win significantly less, and who he thinks of his former teammates will have the hardest time adapting to the Overwatch League. Now, if you want to be notified when that second part comes online, you should hit like, subscribe, and the bell notification. For all things Overwatch, GGRecon.